The Alpha Sessions with Ron Laver.
This is the Alpha Sessions. My name's Ron Laver, and in the studio today I have Joey Clarkson. Welcome, Joey.
Hey, it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Before we get into the interview, I'm just going to read something from some of your promo material
Thank
that
you.
I thought sounded quite interesting. An old school Mumford and Sons meets stripped down version of Taylor Swift. And a drifting Canadian heart caught between the Pacific and Atlantic tides. And I can see that drifting Canadian heart. We'll learn a little bit more about that as the interview goes on. You were originally born on Vancouver Island, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah, I was born in the little town of Comox.
Right. And I guess that's fairly remote.
Yeah, Comox is, well, it's actually one of the bigger towns on the island, but it is still quite small. I don't know I haven't checked the population in years, but I believe it's around 110,000 people.
Right.
But they're all spread.
Yeah.
So it's not like 110,000 in a small little area. It's like 110,000 people spread over the whole vast area that is considered the Comox Valley. So
Right.
it's quite, it is quite remote.
And beautiful, I imagine.
Yeah, it's stunning. Oh, it's so stunning. If people listening haven't been to the Comox Valley, Vancouver Island, or the west coast of Canada, or anywhere in Canada for that matter, I can, honestly, highly recommend it. It's beautiful there.
Well, I can add, I've been to Vancouver, and I think it's a beautiful city, absolutely beautiful. And I have been to the island, but only to
Victoria.
Just...
That's where I live now in London, but
Yeah.
it actually, that confuses people sometimes. They'll ask me where I'm from, and I'll say Victoria,
Yeah.
thinking they know London, and they'll assume that I mean Canada.
That's interesting, because you told us you came from Victoria this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, close. Yeah, I know. And then everybody thinks that I come from Victoria, Canada, but no, it's just a happy coincidence.
So that's where you grew up on the island. Until what sort of age?
I still, to some extent, a piece of my heart is obviously always going to be on the island where my family is. But I grew up there and didn't start traveling until I was about 18 or 19. And then I started coming overseas and touring here and spending more longer chunks of time over in the UK doing touring. And I moved over here back in 2016. So it's been 3.5 years that I've lived over here now. And the most of the other time I was living on Vancouver Island in Comox.
Right. Just commuting occasionally to Europe.
That's a nice way to put it. A very expensive commute.
So you started playing when you were at home in Vancouver Island?
Yes, I've been playing for a long time. So I have been writing music for as long as I can remember. I was, I always think that most kids do write music, but most kids stop writing music when people make fun of them for doing it. If you look at a child who's walking around by themselves with a toy, they will be singing a song to themselves about whatever's happening around them. And that's kind of what started happening with me, except I couldn't sing, and so I couldn't really speak properly either. I had this really gravel box throat that rah, 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 rah. And so my parents put me in choir when I was 5 to fix my speaking voice, with no hopes that I'd be musical, just to fix my speaking voice. And I ended up loving singing. So I kept with singing, I kept with choirs, I didn't really do too much private voice lessons, but I just kept singing in choirs, kept singing with my friends, started writing music with them when we were 7 and 8, and it just kept going and going and going.
Are you from a musical background?
My family didn't pursue it professionally, but my dad always had a guitar in the house, and my mom dabbles a little bit in guitar, mostly campfire guitar, and they would sing old folk songs and Canadian classics and some Joni Mitchell, and it was lovely to grow up in a house like that where music wasn't necessarily an occupation, but it was something that they'd sit down and they'd play music together just for a hobby.
So what made you want to come to Europe in the first place? Was it just that feeling of a youngster wanting to get out of a small town and see a bit of the world? Or?
It was a bit of that. If we're going to be 100% honest, my best friend, who is visiting me right now, actually, she flew in 2 days ago. She's part of the reason why we came to Europe, because we both went through this kind of horrible heartbreak of a summer, and we were really drunk and eating ice cream one night, and we're like, we just want to go to Europe where men have accents. And England seemed the most likely place to do that because we could speak English, so we're like, let's book a tour there. And we did. We just got on the phone pretty much that night and started booking a tour, and then hopped on an airplane 3 months later, bought a van, and started driving around the country.
Wow, that's pretty adventurous. I take it then you you were playing gigs in Canada at that time.
We were, and actually, it wasn't just my friend and I who went. It was we had our guitarist Jesse McCloy as well, and I don't know how he survived that tour because we're a lot when we're together. But he is still one of our best friends too, and he's a phenomenal guitarist. So we were really lucky. There was a trio of us, and we just kind of came over here, saw things, and played as much as we could.
What about musical influences then when you were growing up?
Oh, this is a question that I kind of dread getting because I worry that I'm going to miss somebody out that was like crucial to my development. My parents always had like folk music on and even country music. My Auntie Dean, she used to watch the country music countdown for the music videos, and I remember seeing a lot of Shania, absolutely loving Shania, a lot of Dolly and Reba, and moving into like my stage when I was like 8, I got myself one of those kiddie record players that's plastic from a secondhand shop, and I started collecting vinyl records then that my mom threw out, which is very saddening. But I did have like ABBA's greatest hits, and I remember falling completely head over heels for their song Money, and I would just sing that one, which is kind of funny with the context of it because as a broke musician, obviously I don't have a lot of money, and that's very much the lyrics of that song. So I would say we have a very eclectic mix of people influencing me from a very young age, and now I tend to listen to a lot of up-and-coming artists and not so much established artists. So I tend to listen to the crowd of people that are currently surrounding me to support their endeavors and to help build the community as well. So Russell Swallow, and now I'm drawing blanks, but Liv Austin is a great country singer here. Becky Lawrence and Shannon Hines, Lucy Blue. There's just this phenomenal circle of artists around us in London, particularly right now, and I'm listening to a lot of their stuff.
Well, I certainly know one or two of the names you gave, then, so that's good. The musical influences you gave seem to be very sort of Canadian country, folk songs.
Yeah.
Did it change? Because there must have been a transition period when you came to Europe, were playing, but hadn't got into that circle yet. Were you influenced by what you saw and heard generally?
That's a really good question. I think so. I think I would, we did see quite a few shows in that like transition period, and before I started like kind of tapping into this circle and finding, I guess, friends in the industry and people that I can talk to online and share stages with. Who was I listening to? I think the first band that I kind of picked up over here that I still love and listen to them, and they're very established over here, Ward Thomas. Those two are phenomenal musicians. And Wildwood Kin fell completely head over heels for their sound. A lot of, and you'll probably see a trend, a lot of the artists I listen to are ladies in the music industry, and I don't know why I'm always drawn to that. I do listen to men as well, but I just find I'm more connected to the sounds they're producing, and also in the current climate of trying to build a career for myself in the industry. I know how important it is to support women in the industry, so I tend to lean towards that side of things a bit more.
Seems to be we get a lot of female artists in here, and it seems to be a sort of trend.
Yeah.
That you're all grouping together and working together, and
it's lovely.
Pushing together, which can only be good for the music.
Woke up on the wrong side of the morning. Kinda feels like I could have slept away the afternoon. These days it's easy to forget who we are when we're living like we're always half a beat behind. Gotta stop playing with rewind and take it one step at a time until we find our way through these days. These days. Letting go is simple when it's spoken, but a mouthful when you're trying to put your words into play. And so I keep them, and I'm heavier now, 'cause they're weighing me down. I know it's out of my control. I gotta accept what will unfold and take it as our story rolls till I can cast away these days. These days. I know it's out of my control. I gotta accept what will unfold and take it as our story rolls till I can cast away these days. These days. These days. These days are numbered. Impatiently I'll wait till I can cast away these days. These days. These days. These days.
The Alpha Sessions with Ron Laver.
What's the difference, or is there a difference from the sort of crowds you played to in Canada to when you came to Europe? I know it's different parts of your development, but, you know, can you sort of say, well, the crowds were like this in Canada? And
That is such a tough question, because I recently got asked this question by somebody else as well. It's really hard to answer that as somebody who has an accent in one country but not an accent in another, because the biggest change I noticed for myself is simply by playing shows here and having a Canadian accent, I am perceived differently the moment I step on stage. So I'm more likely to have people listen to me here than I am to have people listen to me in Canada. And people take me seriously here faster, not all the time right away, but they take me seriously faster than they would in Canada, because they assume that I'm touring here and that I must be more established if I have the means to do so. So I think it's really hard to answer that question about different audiences, because there's no way to have like a, what do you call it? Oh no, I'm drawing blanks.
like a level playing field?
Yeah, a level playing field. There's like a scientific term. I'm clearly not a scientist. A medium? No, I don't know what it's called. Anyways, there's no way to really gauge that.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. You don't think, though, that I always think, or would think, that the London scene is a lot more sort of concentrated, and you know, there are a lot of people out looking for acoustic music and you know, singer-songwriters like yourself, and that draws its own audience, I think, particularly in London.
I think, yeah, there's a good scene for it in London right now. It is a matter of working your way into that scene and meeting the right people, sharing the right stages, and supporting the right people as well. Because, as you said, there's a concentrated effort, I guess, in London right now. But at the same time, there's also a huge abundance of a lot of talented people who fit into that category and want to be in that category. So there's definitely pros and cons to it, I think.
Okay, I know it wasn't this simple, but there is another reason you've decided, because you are now permanently living in the UK, aren't you, in London?
Yeah.
And there is another reason why I think you probably decided to make England your home. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. Oh, my husband is just the most beautiful person inside and out that I've ever met. He's like absolutely lovely. He's just this gorgeous personality, and then to top it off, he is like the most gorgeous man. So I fell head over heels for him.
And it's a dream come true. He's got an English accent.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's all we asked for, like 10 years ago when we were eating ice cream drunk on the couch. But in all seriousness, it was quite sudden, and it was really quick, and it was the right time and the right place. Like, we met back in 2012 and nothing happened, and we met again in 2016, and I guess that span, I wrote a lot of music in between that time about a lot of relationships, and I learned a lot, but when it hit that time, it was like the right place, right time, and I think we would quite happily live in Canada as well, but his job doesn't exist in Canada, and my job is movable. So his job is working for the British military as a saxophonist in the band of the Scots Guards, and that job just simply unfortunately does not exist in Canada. So we're here until he's ready to move on from that job, which we always say we're just taking it as it rolls. As long as he's happy doing what he's doing, I'm happy. I'm very happy being here as well.
And you have a band, and he plays in your band.
He does play my band, yeah. So he plays. He doesn't. Well, sometimes he plays saxophone in our band, but he mostly plays bass, which is his secondary instrument. And he's always talked about wanting to learn the bass from the moment we started dating. Whenever we passed a music shop, he would talk about wanting to learn the bass. And so a year and a half ago, 2 Christmases ago, I bought him a bass guitar and an amp, and or a little practice amp, not a full amp. I couldn't afford both. So I bought him a bass guitar, and he's picked it up, and he plays with my band. And then he also plays with a band called the Blue Highways, who are doing some pretty big things in the UK circuit right now, too.
Right, yeah. I have to say I haven't heard of them, but
oh, you should check them out. They're great. They're 4 boys, so they're 3 brothers, and then my husband, and they've been. Yeah, they formed right when I got him the bass guitar, and they saw him post it because he used to play saxophone for them in a different band, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to be our bassist?" And Pete's like, "You do realize I don't play bass yet?" And they're like, "Ah, it's all easy stuff." And he's really just worked really hard. So now he plays bass for them, and he plays bass for me, and I think he's like changed his focus. He really loves it.
That's good. So, and your band itself has got, I would have thought, a fairly unusual lineup. Do you just want to run through the instrumentation that you have?
Yeah, so it's in our ideal situation, and when we have the financial means of paying the members that I would like to play with me. I'm very, we have a cello, a bass guitar, a drummer, a trumpet, and myself. And then if we can add more, we add the violin, and we would like to add keys to it as well.
And you've used trumpet, I know, on a couple of your singles. I mean, your latest single, which we'll get to talk in a minute, and also you had a single out last year that was called Home.
Yes.
And you're playing for us today.
I am playing that one for you
But
today.
the original single has a trumpet on it.
It does.
It's good. I love it.
Oh, thank
I
you.
like to hear that different instrumentation.
I really like it too. I absolutely fell in love with the trumpet. So Rona Karst played trumpet on both recordings, both the singles that have been recently released as well as the upcoming album. And she's a trumpet player from the band of the Scots Guards as well. And I met her like shortly after I met my husband because she plays in the same band as my husband. And the moment I met her and saw her play trumpet, I was like, like I've never seen somebody get that kind of sound out of a trumpet where they play it like a singing voice. And I always say it sounds like she's singing through her trumpet because she has so much emotion behind her playing. And I was like, that is what I need. I want Rona to be one of my best friends. She's going to be my friend. And then hopefully she'll want to play music with me too. And she's a beautiful person and an incredible musician. I'm so lucky to have her talent on my tracks.
I guess I don't have to really ask with the title like Home, but what do you want to tell us what the influence was behind that song?
For a long time. So I mentioned earlier that I started traveling when I was around 18, 19 and started coming over here and back and forth. And in doing so, obviously, there were long periods of time where I wouldn't see my family. And I used to write songs for lots of different people, but my family always was bugging me to write a song for them. And I was terrified that I was going to write the wrong song for them. So I didn't want to push it or force it or start writing it before it naturally happened, because a lot of my songs just kind of fall right out. And one day I was flying home from Alberta back to BC, and it was right before I was leaving on like a 4-month tour, and I was playing a house show at my parents' house, and on the airplane home, the day before the house concert, I started thinking about the melody, and I started writing it out, and I actually wrote the whole song on the back of a plane ticket, and then I put the guitar to it when I got home, because obviously I didn't have my guitar in the cabin. It was a tin can airplane too. It was like one of those ones where they got like one seat, pretty much, in one seat, and then it like shakes.
That's a really interesting story, because I imagined you sitting in a lonely hotel room somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
I want to be home.
I think a lot of those feelings definitely came from that. It was really hard to get through the first time I played it. It's still hard to get to when I play it
I can
with
imagine,
my family in the room.
I'm getting used to sailing sky high and counting patchwork squares below, chasing my dreams on the horizon, moving fast enough that everything seems slow. But you and I, we have an understanding. I let you know I'm safe after every landing. No matter how far I may go, If I don't call her right enough, I hope you know there's no space or distance that could change the way it feels to see your face when I get home. Some nights it's hard to silence my thoughts. The time apart, it breaks my heart in two. I know you worry when I take off, that I won't make my way back home to you. But no matter how far I may go, if I don't call her right enough, I hope you know there's no space or distance that could change the way it feels to see your face when I get home. 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 You and I, we have an understanding. I let you know I'm safe after every landing. And no matter how far I may go, if I don't call her right enough, I hope you know there's no space or distance that could change the way it feels to see your face when I get home. When I get home. When I get home. When I get home. When I get home is wherever you'll meet me. My home, it don't matter what country. My home is the only thing I need. My home, 'cause you'll always be my home is wherever you'll meet me. My home, it don't matter what country. My home is the only thing I need. My home, 'cause you'll always be my home.
The Alpha Sessions with Ron Laver.
So you married your husband in...
I married him in 2017.
Okay.
2 years ago almost.
But for your first year of marriage...
Yeah.
You were having problems with immigration in terms of a visa to work, I guess.
Yeah, it was. This one is, I swear I could talk about this for days and days and days, and this is what the album we're releasing this year is about. But essentially, our first application, so I was here on a young person's youth mobility visa before, so we didn't need to apply for my spousal visa until after like our 4th or 5th month of marriage. And we just assumed when we applied for it that it would just obviously go through. He's in the military, we're married, we've been together for a long time, and like, why wouldn't our visa application go through? And so we applied, and it was declined. The first one was declined, and I had a job lined up, and obviously had aspirations of releasing like an album that year, of living kind of stress-free first year of marriage where we didn't have to worry about starting a family or buying a house. Our plan was honestly to not worry about money and to enjoy being married. And we got the visa declined, and everything kind of switched, because at that moment you lose all the money for the application. You have to come up with more money to apply again. You have to kind of wait to apply again as well. And the whole process took about 9 months, which was the worst. It was the worst 9 months. It was horrible. And the only positive thing I can think of is that it's helped me connect with some people who were going through similar things and who needed help going through those things. And it also gave us something to write about. So I didn't get to release the album I wanted to release last year, and I'm not going to release that album, but we did write an album about the year that never happened, and I think it made for some really good music.
So you've got your visa now.
We do.
You're legal, and you've got a single out, just come out at the moment. In fact, we've got it on the Alpha Sessions July playlist.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
And Sort Yourself Out. That's another one you're going to sing for us today, I
That
think.
is another one I'm singing today, yes.
And is that from the album? Is that like a first release?
That's
from
the
album?
first single from the album, yes.
Is it going to be the title of the album?
No. So I'm not sure if I'm not sure what our next single's going to be honest, because we don't have the final mixes back. So I want to pick the single from the final mix and master. But the title track for the album is called The Year That Never Happened.
Right.
And yeah.
That's self-explanatory.
Self-explanatory.
I think. So when do you expect the album to be out?
We are shooting for November, and I'm just in the midst of securing the final kind of album launch venue. So I should know within the next couple of weeks the exact date. We should have tickets up.
Well, you'll keep us posted.
Oh,
won't you?
absolutely! I'm so excited for this.
And I guess again a question that's fairly obvious. It was quite cathartic writing that album.
Yeah, I would say it was. It's more the producing of the album that's been the healing journey for me, because I think writing it was really difficult to write, and I don't think it actually helped me get over any of it, to be honest. But when we started getting into the studio and putting it down and turning it into something, I feel every time we go into the studio and every time we get one step closer to releasing the album, I feel like I'm one step closer to releasing the pain and the weight of what's happened. And I just feel like this, once we finally have this physical and the digital tracks, and once we finally let go, I feel a lot lighter. I just feel a lot happier. So
it's a burden you've been carrying and something you've lived with now, probably for getting on for 2 years.
It's hard,
and that'll be the release.
Yeah, it's really easy to get lost in your anger, because there's just so much that can happen in a year.
Yeah.
And it's just so easy that was the first time I've ever not been in the driving seat of my own life, where you can sit back and you go, I really don't actually have control right now. And that was a huge lesson for me. And that year was, it was a big struggle. And I feel like you can spend your whole life looking back at that and letting that affect you. And this has really been a healing journey, making the album, to let go of it. And hopefully it'll help other people going through similar things.
I guess if you have a release party for that, you're going to have a very good night, aren't you?
I'm very excited. Yes. We're actually, I can talk about the venue that we're securing for it. It's at the Hampstead Unitarian Chapel. So it's this huge, vaulted ceilings. It's stunning in there. It's just going to be it's going to be a lot of, is it ambiance in the room? Am I saying that right?
Well, you're probably saying it right for a Canadian. Ambience.
Ambience. No, it's probably not even for a Canadian.
What else is planned for the next few months between now and then? Are you just exclusively working on the album? Or?
No, so we've wrapped all the tracks on the album. We're mixing it in the next week or two, and then I should be able to start focusing on getting that out to publications and radio. So I'll send you guys a copy for sure.
Thank you.
But then we're releasing a live session that we did at the London Museum of Water and Steam, which I'm very excited for. So that's a 3-song live EP.
Oh, wow.
It's got 1 cover in it and 2 songs off the upcoming album, but they're in a live kind of setting. So that will happen.
Is that live with the whole band?
Yes. So that's going to be live mid-August. And then we've got a German tour with the Blue Highways that we're taking part in at the end of August. And I am opening up for Royal South, which is a band from, well, actually, they're kind of half from the States and half from England, because one of their members is British. But they're coming over at the end of September, and they're playing the Water Rats on the 29th. And I just found out I get to open up for them. So they're great.
Wow.
Definitely,
That's great.
if you're listening to this, you should definitely check out Royal South's music.
I just want to ask you about These Days.
These Days,
Is
yes.
that off the album?
That is off the album, and I haven't actually played that one on any broadcast yet, so I wanted to do something special for this as well. That's the first song I wrote after my visa was declined, so it was the song that fell out the morning after, and that's a song I don't feel like I actually wrote, because I feel like I sat down and just started playing it, and it was there, and that one's very close to my heart. Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a lot going on, it seems to me, coming up in the
think
next
it's gonna be
year.
busy.
Is this a full-time job for you?
I have a full-time job as
You
well.
have a full-time job as well?
Wow. I work as I just got my promotion too, so I'm now the managing director of a company called Teach Major, and we bring music programs into schools within the London or Greater London area. So we bring music into primary schools.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think
love
that's
it.
a really good thing to be involved in, because I know when I went to school, we had music lessons if you usually had to pay for them
I know.
in senior school, but not in primary school.
It's really great what this company's doing. I love my boss. She's amazing. Molly Kale, she's built this from the ground up, and I feel super blessed. That's another thing that happened after the year that never happened. If I had got my visa right away, I would have had my job, and I would have had other commitments, and when this job fell into place, I don't think it would have fallen into place. So I think everything, as tough as it was, and as much as I hated hearing it, everything does eventually happen for a reason. And I wouldn't have wound up where I am now in this position, that's for sure.
I think it's really important to teach kids the value of music and the outlet it gives you.
Absolutely.
And you were saying earlier, 7-year-old kids writing songs,
Yeah.
being laughed at. Hopefully that sort of thing that's happening now will help,
I
get
hope
over
so.
that.
I
And,
hope so.
You did something like that in Canada, didn't you?
I was teaching in Canada, so I actually, oh man, without going too far into it, I started teaching like theater when I was about 11 years old, and I was trained into that position because I was always involved in theater and choirs, and so I was trained into it by a local drama instructor, and she kind of took me under her wing and had me learn how to teach classes. And then when I was 13, I was allowed to teach by myself because you had to be a certain age to be alone with the children, and I started teaching the introductory drama classes. And then when I was 17, I opened my own business teaching musical theater. And so I did musical theater classes, and I would travel around BC, Canada, and as far away as like Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and teach these week-long courses bringing music into areas or musical theater into areas that didn't have access to the arts as readily available as other places do, which is, again, in Canada, it's very common to go somewhere and go into communities that just don't have these programs. So it was a very adventurous time, and I did spend lots of time away from home because of it, but it was very fun. So I was doing that, and then I was working for a program called Wild Heart Music, which brings music into the North Vancouver Island School District again. So I was teaching within the schools there.
Very rewarding, I should imagine.
It was rewarding, and it was very difficult. It was very hard work. It was, when I was working up on the Northern Island, it was very rewarding, but everything is so far away from everything else. And I just found that I was speaking with children lots of the day, and I had very minimal contact with any other adults, and it was really hard. It was in 6-week stints, so I would go up there and I'd teach Monday through Friday, and I would teach at like 5 different kind of areas, and throughout like 8 o'clock in the morning till sometimes with evening choirs like 9 or 10 at night, and it was just really long days. So it was really rewarding, and it's a program that is incredible on the North Island of Vancouver Island, and I feel very grateful to have had that opportunity for sure, but it was definitely hard work.
I could go on talking to you for hours about life in Vancouver and on the islands, etc. But maybe we'll do some of that off mic. Just to wrap up,
Yeah.
if people have heard your music today and they want to hear more, find out about you, where can they go?
It's so easy because I made it really easy. It's joeyclarkson.com. So it's JoeyClarkson.com. And if you go there, I've got links to all of my socials. So it's easier than telling people to find me on Facebook. I know people sometimes don't like it. I've got lots of different pages and lots of different ways to communicate with people, and I post a lot. So I would love to meet you if you're listening out there.
Okay, Joey, thanks very much for coming in, and thanks for playing for us today.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Woke up a few years older than you wanna feel, weighted down by the distractions that have brought you here. When did you let yourself down? You've always been someone to count on when you gave your word. The bitter end is where they'll find you, even when it hurts. The more you let yourself bleed, the more you lose what you need. You got no reason to stay if you're not feeling the way you were when we started out. I know you're craving a change, sort yourself out. Well, I won't be the one to tell you what you wanna hear. Won't make excuses, 'cause that won't make it disappear. When everything's set aside, you got nowhere left to hide. You got no reason to stay if you're not feeling the way you were when we started out. I know you're craving a change, your body's begging for space. Go on and sort yourself out. Girl, it's time that you slow yourself down, 'cause I got a feeling that you're gonna burn yourself out. Take a second and remember how to breathe. Put yourself on your list and reorganize priorities, 'cause everybody knows. Yeah, everybody knows. If you don't, then they won't. That's the way it goes. You got no reason to stay if you're not feeling the way you were when we started out. I know you're craving a change, your body's begging for space. You got no reason to stay if you're not feeling the way you were, the way you were. I know you're craving a change, your body's begging for space. Go on and sort yourself out.